So it's 4:05. Normally we can start. What do you think?
Yep, I agree.
Okay, well, I will launch my presentation just a moment. Can you see my presentation?
Yep.
Okay, good. So so first of all, welcome everybody to this webinar of Critical Media Studies master program. And as you know, this is the English-speaking master in field of media studies in High School of Economics at Institute of Media. So, and in order to introduce you a little bit into the critical approach and critical media studies discipline as a field of science, so I prepared a kind of particular presentation, presentation about ongoing industrialization of culture. So in this presentation, I will try to represent industrialization as ongoing process. So it means that process which is still continuing, which means that progressively more and more fields of culture or fields related with the culture start to be included into the system of industrial production and especially capitalist industrial production. Yeah. So, so the summary of my lecture you can see on this slide. Yeah. So I will start with quite short theoretical review of theory of cultural industries in order to explain you what approach we may use in this field. Then I will present the main changes of cultural industries in a digital world and what kind of transformations of the core principles of cultural industry we may see in this digital environment. Yeah. Then I will present you briefly the concept of enlarging industrialization. So what does it mean as a process? And finally, I will finish my today's presentation with a quite short analysis of the market power changes in the media and IT segment. Yeah. So the theory of cultural industries. Theory of cultural industries is a theory which relies on a critical political economy of communication approach. Yeah. And the central point of political economy, critical political economy of communication, this is the question of inequality and dominance in field of access to the information and culture, and in the field of access to the means of self-expression. So it means that political economy of communication, essentially critical political economy of communication, deals with different kind of abuses of different kind of forms of power, yeah, in the field of media. Yeah. And this is a study about the way communication goods are produced and unequally distributed across the society, which generates abuses of different forms of power. Yeah? So, and of course, the sources of such inequalities is probably one of the first thing which is especially problematic for us, yeah, and which gives to some critical scholars the ability to assume that capitalist industrial organization is probably not the perfect way to organize the cultural institutions and the cultural self-expression. Yeah. So of course the question is not the question is the important question is why this approach is important in today's world. And I think that this approach becomes even more important right now when access to the cultural production and cultural self-expression is mediated by big digital platforms, essentially commercial digital platforms, which belong to the private companies, private platform owners. Some of them are global platform owners, and of course, as a result, they're structuring their relationship of power and inequality of power between users and the platform proprietors. Yeah. So first of all, we have to deal with the term industrialized culture, and what is the difference between industrialized and non-industrialized culture. What is the difference between industry and non-industry, and etc. To explain this difference, I will rely not on the let's say classic economic science approach. I will rely essentially on the political economic approach to the culture. Yeah. So the classic economic way to define what is the industry, the industry is a kind of branch of economy. Yeah. So from this point of view, anything can be proclaimed an industry. Yeah. For example, then the so-called nail industry. Yeah. The industry of making nails. Yeah. So from this point of view, every kind of economic activity should be or can be considered as industry. Here, I will refer to another approach, to the approach which is based on a critical political economy assumption. According to this approach, industry means the industrial production means the mass production. Industrial production means the mass production on the basis of the so-called zero copy. So you have a zero copy of, I don't know, a film, and then you are making a copying of this production of this film on a few different mediums. Yeah. So it means that initially you have deal with a mass production based on a technical reproducibility. So you have deal with a technical reproducible medium. Yeah. And such fields of culture as recorded music, cinema, movie sector, publishing, series sector, etc., should be and can be considered as industrial production. But some fields of culture cannot be considered as industrial production, such as painting, for example, or theatrical performance, plastic arts, etc. Why they are non-industrial? Because they are non-massively technically reproduced. Means that if you need to make a theatrical performance massively reproduced, you have to play each time the performance, and you have to use your actors troupe to make this performance each time they are coming to the scene. So of course this is not mass production, and this is not technical reproducible mass production. Of course you may film the performance, the theatrical performance on a video, but in this case this theatrical performance and this video will bring to another kind of reproducible cultural industry, such as television, for example. Yeah, we know that a television is usually employed to make a broadcasting of big theatrical performances, for example, opera performances, etc. But essentially, such activity has nothing to do with a theatrical performance as the economic activity, and is essentially kind of part of the television branch of the industrial production. So what does it mean, non-industrial production? First of all, it doesn't mean that this is not commercial. Theatrical performance can be commercial. So this is the part of the economy of culture, but it's not a part of industry, of cultural industries. And if we will take a look on official statistics of such branches of culture, we will see that recorded music, so the so-called phonographic industry, cinema, so-called movie industries, or movie sector, or audiovisual sector, which is much more larger than just the movie sector, because audiovisual sector includes also television, includes also the production for the television shows, production of the television series, for example, etc. Yeah. So of course, such activity are much more bigger in terms of money, in terms of market power, etc., rather than paintings, rather than theatrical performance, etc. So such sector of non-industrial production, we call it usually the craft production. And this is the essential difference between crafts and industry. Crafts are essentially little scale business, and crafts are essentially deals with quite compact teams working on a production. So what is the role of, what is the particularly important in this industrial production? The particularly important in this industrial production, this is the role of the editor. Editor may be a movie major, for example, the major company, yeah, or music major, yeah, big music company which manages the rights for the music industry. So what is the function of this editor? Editor is bringing together two things. Is bringing together the artistic or creative side of the process, yeah, creative process, which is a personally driven idea, immaterial, immeasurable practice, yeah, essentially done by so-called creative workers, yeah, like authors, like television producers, like actors, etc., like music singers, yeah. And the second thing is that technical reproduction and distribution. So it means that editor brings together, editor helps the creative worker to make his work to be technically accessible to the big number of people, and as a result to make it distributable, spreadable. Let's use this term coming from works of Henry Jenkins, spreadable, yeah. So, and from this point of view, editor plays a very important role, yeah. As publishing house in a book sector, this is also the editor. As the movie sector major, as the major in phonographic industry sector, etc., etc. This is a very important thing. So without this editor, the creative worker will just produce a content without understanding what to do with, yeah. So it has been historically like that. There are two theoretical foundations of cultural industries as idea, yeah, and the two main branches, if you want, the two main bases for it. The first is the so-called Frankfurt School. Frankfurt School, and essentially works by Theodor Adorno and Max Horkheimer, yeah, who by using the idea of technical reproducibility of Walter Benjamin, yeah, made a kind of critique against commercialization of culture and essentially industrialization of culture, yeah. So yes, the Benjamin who wrote his technical the the artwork in the era of technical reproducibility. This is the main work, the main essay of Walter Benjamin. Benjamin is quite ambivalent in this book, because from one hand Benjamin is saying that we may see a lot of technically reproducible culture, essentially music or movie, yeah, which is appearing, and the technical reproducibility contributes to losing the aura. The aura is a particular characteristic of the artworks Yeah, aura is based on a uniqueness of artistic creation. When you are coming to Louvre Museum, for example, and you can see Gioconda from Leonardo da Vinci painting, so you have a particular aura around this painting, just because this aura is related with the uniqueness of this particular picture. Yeah, so it's unique. It exists in just one copy. Yeah, this is a region. Yeah, and once we have deal with the reproducible art, according to Benjamin, this authenticity, this aura is disappearing progressively. Yeah, just because you have no unique object of art. So, but from another hand, Benjamin is trying to say that it makes the culture massively accessible to their high range of people, to the mass people. And from this point of view, Benjamin is not totally critical against that. Yeah. But on the basis of this technical reproducibility of argument, Adorno and Horkheimer are building their critique, their point of critique, and the essential point of critique is not reproducibility per itself. Is the idea that on a basis of such technical reproducibility, we may see the transformation of culture from the elitist artworks, which has been essentially financed by the mecenates, yeah, to the kind of the pragmatic things oriented toward gratification of people, yeah, obtaining prestige or leisure, yeah, on pleasure. And from this point of view, culture is losing its particular aura. Culture is losing its important social role of dreaming about the best, dreaming about the ideal things, yeah, and acquired a kind of very pragmatic things to be a kind of the consumer good, which can be sold out on a market and which is produced on a basis of very standard procedures, standard procedures using machine production, etc. This is the first basis for this cultural industries theory. The second basis is the political economy of communication. It comes later. It comes essentially in 1970s. Yeah. And this second direction, this is a political economy of communication, essentially critical political economy of communication from United States. Yeah. Articulated in works by Dallas Smythe, Herbert Schiller, and some other, Ben Bagdikian, or we can even mention Robert McChesney and some others. Yeah. This idea is based on a more and more involvement of most dynamic sectors of financial industrial capitalism into industries of mass communication. It means that the political economy of communication deals with progressive growth of the importance of media sector and cultural sector in global capitalism, in global financial industries, in financial markets. And we may see how actually the big media companies, so companies related with manufacturing of media content, etc., are companies with a high capitalization, and a lot of them are present in the financial markets, yeah, and sometimes they are the difference between their real cost and the so-called investment cost, so the capital cost, is very high. Means that they have a huge speculative potential. Yeah, we may see how this sector became progressively attractive for the investors. Investors are ready to pay much more for this sector than this sector really costs. Yeah, and such phenomena as concentration, transnational companies, multimedia, etc., as a result, has been became at the center of this second basis of cultural industries. So the theory of cultural industries, the contemporary theory of cultural industries, of course, appears in the 1970s within mostly French and partly British schools of studies, yeah, and largely they are based on both approaches, on Frankfurt School approach and political economy approaches, and they are so tightly connected between them, these two approaches, that it's quite difficult to dissociate that. Yeah, there are few reasons why finally at this period of time this theory appears in the study field. Yeah, and essentially it has been related with the increasing role of information and culture within industries of contemporary economy, and this is obvious. But the second is essentially deregulation. Means that in 1970s, 1980s, in Brittany, in France, or in Germany, we may see a rise of debate about progressive commercialization of audiovisual segment of media. Means that before, the television in Europe, across the Europe, has been essentially state-owned. Yeah, it has been considered as a public good. Yeah, and in a majority of European countries, there were state monopolies for the audiovisual production. Yeah, the state controlled this sector entirely. Yeah, and in 1970s, 1980s, they started their era of deregulation, when the states started to proclaim that finally there is probably the time to liberate this sector, to privatize it partly, yeah, because the sector may or should be commercial driven. And of course, the critique against these commercial logics became very important. Yeah, and became, of course, this part of the French or British schools of cultural studies. Yeah. Another important thing is, of course, the intensification of international exchanges in this field, and we may see that since the Second World War, the role of this cultural production flows of exportation, and especially exportation of American cinema to the third world countries or in Europe, became more and more important. So as a result, of course, the idea, the critique of the domination of United States at this sector, at this field, also has been considered as very important part of this theoretical framework. So, of course, the first works has been essentially related with peculiarities of cultural industries. And especially they use the term cultural industries in plural. By that, they're trying to say that we have no cultural industry. We have different cultural industries with different logics of functioning and different logics of the capital accumulation. Yeah. So from this point of view, it's very important to say that yes, Adorno and Horkheimer never used the term cultural industries in plural. They used cultural industry because, according to them, all cultural industries have just the same logics. Yeah, the logics of accumulation of capital, while the works in this period of time are trying to prone to speak about cultural industries in plural, just because we have very considered important changes across such industries, important classification of different models of capital accumulation in such industries, and we need to use this term in plural. Yeah. Then the second important period of time probably has been at the beginning of 2000s. Yeah, because and it became important to state the idea of theory of content. The idea that finally it became very, very difficult to dissociate industries of culture from industries of mass communication and from industries of, I don't know, software, just because all such segments demonstrated the common logics, and these common logics, of course, contributed a lot to the convergence between the sector of device manufacturing, sector of software manufacturing, and sector of the creative production, such as music, movie, etc. Yeah. And of course, it becomes the period of time of the studying cultural industries in a digital age. Yeah. And networks has been considered as a new path to this industrialization. So, of course, since that time, there are huge changes in digital world, and especially if the old world of we call it the old world of gatekeepers has been based on a very high level of power among distributors of cultural industries. So means that every artist, in order to make his idea spreadable, needed a kind of gatekeeper, pornographic company, radio station, publishing house, etc. So it means that it has been a world of gatekeepers. Yeah, media companies represented such gatekeepers. It means that without having an access to the media company, you have been absolutely unable to spread your ideas. Actually, we can see a very high variety of channels of this diversity. Yeah, and the old world was based on a high level of power among distributors of cultural industries. Actually, we may see that there are much more distributors of cultural industries. As a result, we probably have to speak about multiplicity of distributors and probably the decrease of their market power. Yeah, because actually artists can publish, I don't know, a song without a phonographic company. He can arrange his song by himself and put it in YouTube, for example, yeah, or in some other crowdfunding platforms, for example, yeah, crowdsourcing, as we call them. So it means that this variety of channels of distribution created an impression of the more competitive market. But when I speak about gatekeeping, we should keep in mind that we should use the more broad sense of this gatekeeping. Gatekeeping could be regarded as high market power of any kind of companies, which main activity is the brokerage. So it means that actually any kind of electronic platforms is a gatekeeper. Taxi service is a gatekeeper. Tourism service, gatekeeper, medical care, university. So we may see how all such sectors has been progressively mediatized, and digital media platforms has been used in taxi sector service in order to make a brokerage between the riders and the taxi drivers. In field of tourism, the brokerage between people who are trying to find the accommodations and people who are and hotel services who are proposing such accommodation. The same in medical care, the same in university with so-called online education platforms, etc. So it means that actually gatekeeping companies are progressively replaced by mediatized platforms with their own logics of the capital accumulation. Yeah. And the gatekeepers are under the market dominance of technological companies, and this is important feature of the contemporary industries of culture. Yeah. Of course, we may deal with the new products. Yeah, because essentially right now the majority of cultural production is immaterial. Yeah, it hasn't been like that, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago. Yeah, actually, immaterial services providing the information access to a particular person's goods, like searching agents, for example, etc. And from this point of view, there is a very high importance of the advising role, the new gatekeeping role of the organization. Yeah. From this point of view, we may see the development of social exchange, connecting people between them, allowing them diffuse different information, share the self-reproduced content and different kind of private life. Yeah. And the general trend, it reflects the general trend of transformation of goods into services, which has been described well by Jeremy Rifkin around 20 years ago. Yeah, the idea of transformation of the property into the access. Yeah, instead of property, we just need an access. Yeah, and from this point of view, the idea of Jeremy Rifkin is coming from pre-digital field, from pre-digital era. Yeah, where Jeremy Rifkin tried to find this model which he described in his Age of Access. Yeah, access to particular good became much more important than just a selling of the property for this good. Yeah, and it's true that contemporary digital platform are pretty different from the, I don't know, from the field of physical mediums. Yeah, I don't know, 20 years ago, you have gone to the, I don't know, to the video store and both acquired VHS video cassette. So you just paid one time for your VHS cassette, you obtained it as a property, and then you can exploit it everywhere you want without any connection with the company who sold you this video VHS cassette out. Actually, it's not like that. Actually, when you are acquiring the particular film, you have a permanent connection with a company who sold you out the video for this film. So you have to be either subscribed, yeah, or you should have an account, yeah. And so it means that your relationship with a company which is giving you this ability to consume this product becomes a permanent. Yeah, this is a permanent relationship, and this is a huge transformation. Yeah. Of course, I consider this process of industrialization of culture as ongoing or enlarging. Means that this process is progressively including into this industrial realm more and more businesses, more and more activities. So it means that it's trying to bring into the capitalist model more and more things which probably before hasn't been a capitalist industry. Yeah. Of course, at the core, at the center of this industrialization, the phenomenon of mediatization. Yeah? So it means that mediatization of particular relationship through digital platform, giving the possibility to industrialize something which before hasn't been so industrialized. Yeah, because it makes cultural practice more individual, and mediatization makes the particular practices as more spreadable, more massive, yeah, massively reproducible. And massive reproduction, as we already said, is a first pathway toward the industrialization. Yeah. So as a result, we may see some new kind of products in the field of industrialization, new products in field of culture, which becomes progressively more and more industrialized or included into the industrial logics. Yeah, the good example, first of all, this is the theater, the industrialization of dramatic art. Yes, basically, theater remains this craft production, means that the original traditional theater is non-reproducible and it remains like that. But actually, we may see how theater became more standardized, especially in case of so-called musicals. Yeah? What is a musical? Musical is a quasi-industrialized dramatic realm, because musical is functioning on the basis of franchise. Yeah, franchise. It means that the musical, I don't know, Chicago in Broadway theater in New York will be absolutely the same than a musical Chicago in Moscow or some other city. Why? Because the author's right, which are spreadable on a basis of franchise relationship, requires the standardization of the choreography, of the music, of the actors playing, etc., of the script. So as a result, you have different troops playing the same musical, but the form of this musical is absolutely identical in different parts of the world. So as a result, this is a kind of industrialization, yeah, can be considered as industrialization, because it's a massivization, it's a form of making the spreading of this cultural taste massive. Yeah, the same may be, for example, said about the so-called music festivals. Yeah, you know, very important cultural practice right now, it's a music festivals. Yeah, like Glastonbury music festivals, etc. A huge part of them is organized conjointly by media and phonographic industry in order to promote particular tracks, in order to promote music, etc. So another field is the industrialization of the education. The education has been historically has been a sector which for the long time has been considered as at the margin of industrialization. Why? Because the core activity of the education, so the direct relationship between professor and the student, hasn't been mediatized, so hasn't been industrialized. It has always been a part of the traditional model, and from this point of view, the education in this form never changed during few thousand years. Yeah, the direct relationship between professor and his students around him, so quite little group, quite compact group of personal relationship between professor and students has been a center of these educational practices. But actually, we may see how the mass education, especially the global growth of enrollment in the world, forced university to find strategies to cut off the cost and implement new managerial practices, and the appearance of mass open online course, distant education, blended learning, Zoom technologies as we use right now, etc. We may see how they progressively changed this relationship, yeah, progressively mediatizing this relationship by means of video transmission, online learning, etc. And actually one of the prominent market sector in field of cultural industries, because we may see how online degrees or online mass courses became a kind of commercial project, commercial commodity. Yeah. Another thing is, of course, the industrialization of the user-generated content. Yeah. So we may see how different kind of forms of amateurism, such as amateur video films, non-mass music singers, etc., progressively industrialized And we may see a success of some platforms, notably YouTube, as the platforms especially done to make to amateurism the ability to be industrial, yeah, and the ability to crowdfund or to crowdsource some kind of activities, yeah. So it means that, of course, the process of individualization, it's also very important, because this process of individualization of devices started, I don't know, around 200 years ago. Yeah. So we may see a lot of particular features of the contemporary individualization of the cultural production and cultural industries. Yeah. We may see miniaturization of devices, usage of less voluminous components, more flexible material, etc. Yeah. And we may see how radio has progressively moving from living room as place of collective practice to the kitchen, car. So it's a very long process over the last few hundred years. Yeah. So the same logics with every devices. Yeah. The video, VHS, DVD, tablets, television has been installed separately in kitchen, then in child room, and actually we have we may see a totally individual realm. Actually, we are consuming a majority of cultural content in individual devices, so devices which are personal, which belongs to us personally. Yeah. And of course, this is a very long history, as you may see on this timeline. Yeah, we may start from very collective practices, like collective music, singing, using piano or for example, accordion, or for example, using the phonograph or graphophone to collective practice, or collective radio listening. Yeah, and actually we may see a totally individual realm. Yeah, so, and we have deal with the individual electronic devices. Yeah, and the number of such connected devices is always growing. So we may see that from one hand, the number of functions in just one device is permanently growing. So it means that there is a huge universalization of devices. Actually, we may do quasi the same things on a laptop PC, on telephone, on tablet PC, etc. So there is a universalization of devices. But from another hand, the number of devices is growing. The number of connecting devices is still growing. It means that even if we have a laptop, we need a mobile phone, so the smartphone, we need a tablet PC, etc. And the third feature is that it means that multifunctionality doesn't lead to the reduction of number of devices. In reality, it's just growing. Yeah? And especially the number of connected devices is growing just because we have deal actually with IoT, Internet of Things. Yeah, when more and more domestic electronics is connected to the internet. Of course, the source of market strategy, actually, this is the mediatization of practices, mediatization of everyday life. Yeah, the Googleization of the information segment. Yeah, the data, the big data economy means that we may see how more and more things are mediatized, are accessible to us through the digital platforms, including, for example, the practices of the so-called online trade, e-trade. Yeah? So it means that everyday life is entering more into media. It's not media which is entering into everyday life. It's everyday life which is entering more into media, because once we are, instead of selling, I don't know, things in the store, are starting to sell the things online, we transforming such things into media content. As a result, their strategies of usage of this content are applied. Yeah, and we may see how transport practices, for example, has been progressively mediatized during last 10 years. Yeah, the total usage of online maps, the electronic advisory systems, etc. They totally changed the segment of transport. The same with the sport and health field. Yeah, the trackers and other functions often built up into mobile devices, transformed our practices to do a sport, our practices to do collective things, it's essentially what we call actually the Uberization. It's like media working as platforms of brokerage between different kind of actors. Yeah. So finally, how they changes in field of market power works in this field. Yeah, and here we have to conclude that we have deal with the ongoing hybridization between media and IT, between media and information technology sector, and their progressive convergence. Yeah. And we may see the history of this concentration in cultural industries. Yeah, that on this timeline, we may see how from horizontal concentration, which means the merging of businesses in field of press between them, or movie companies between them, in order to maximize their part of market, we may see few strategies of different kind of diagonal concentration. The first stage was the merging press and television companies between them, and as a result, the appearance of so-called multimedia companies, merging electronic media and print media. Then we may see a diagonal concentration of the second stage, merging media with the cultural industries, with telecom companies. Yeah, we may see appearance of such companies as America Online and Time Warner. Yeah, a mergement between America Online, which is an internet provider, and Time Warner, which is a company in field of mass communication and in field of cultural industries, essentially movie sector. And then since 2015, we may see the diagonal concentration. Number 3, this is the merging of media and cultural industries with IT companies sector, essentially right now, and the appearance of what we call actually the so-called ecosystem company. Yeah, so it means that, of course, there is a very long period of history of the transformation. First of all, it's deregulation, so the privatization of partly privatization of European television companies, yeah, and proliferation of cable and satellite distribution. Yeah, then we may see how progressively electronic companies, so companies which have been manufacturers of the equipment, became more and more active in field of entertainment, notably Matsushita, so the Panasonic, which acquired Universal in 1990, the Sony Picture, the Sony company manufacturer, which acquired in 1989 the Columbia Picture, and in 2005 MGM, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, which has been a kind of classics of the Hollywood studios system. Yeah. Then we may see the turn of telecommunication, yeah, the mergement between Time Warner and America Online, and the creation of Time Warner Cable, yeah, and then one of the most symbolic have been a mergement between Comcast and NBC, yeah, Comcast as a big American cable company, and NBC Universal as a big company in field of mass information and mass communication, the NBC, and in field of entertainment, the Universal Picture. Yeah. And of course, actually, we may see a new players. So this IT sector brings into media new players. Yeah. We may see how media merging with e-commerce companies, Amazon, notably, for example. Amazon started with just shipment of different kind of goods, but then Amazon started to produce a content with so-called Amazon Prime Video. Yeah. So media merging with sport companies. Yeah. Media and cultural industries progressively dependent from financial sector. Yeah. And finally, cultural industries became more and more dependent from IT platforms such as Google, iTunes, etc., and especially the platform logic, creation of the particular aggregation services which could be used jointly with the particular devices. Yeah, you can't use iTunes without iOS equipment, or you can't use a Google Play without Android equipment. Yeah, so the good question, what's next? And the next is the involving of big sectors into industrialized mediatization cultural industries, which will emerge with more broader range of industries. So it means that actually cultural industries becomes more and more oriented toward new sectors of the world economy, such as medicine, education, financial sector, alimentary, just because all of them becoming increasingly dependent from this digital platform brokerage, and this digital platform brokerage are making them media, making them partly media and mediatized. And of course, this creates a particular ecosystems, yeah, ecosystems where you can see a coexistence, technological coexistence of few kind of services. First of all, this is the education services. You may see how Amazon, with Amazon Education, Microsoft with Microsoft Education, they are developing such services. We may see how these services are also strongly connected with their own particular financial services. And this is a hugely different from what we may see, for example, in Russia. In Russia, we may see how old financial companies like Sberbank, for example, are trying to be more and more active in field of digital realm, digital platform, etc. Here, it's vice versa as a process, as when companies which has been developing in field of media are starting to expand into the field of financial services. Amazon with Amazon Pay, Microsoft with Microsoft Pay, Google with Google Pay, Apple with Apple Pay. Yeah, so the particular platforms of payments which are organizing around a particular financial ecosystem. Yeah, then mass communication services like MSNBC in case of Microsoft, so the classical mass media. And which is also very interesting is that a lot of such firms are investing money into the so-called pilot-free transport. So they called self-piloted transport. Yeah. Why? Because all such companies are requiring a huge range of datas, and such datas, the collection of such data permits to such companies to use this data in order to implement the so-called non-piloted moving, non-piloted vehicles, and in this field. Yeah. So this is the end of my presentation for today. If you have questions, I will be happy to answer them. You may ask your questions in chat or in voice. It's up to you. Okay, so you have no questions. Thank you very much for your attention.